Quality number 9 is generosity. I could speak all day on this area. Calvin Coolidge was so right when he said, "No person was ever honored for what he received. Honor has been the reward for what he gave." Recently, Margaret and I and my brother and sister-in-law spent some time in the Greek islands and went up into Turkey, and one of my, well, probably my favorite place to stop of all of it was a place called Ephesus. Ephesus was one of the great cities of 2,000 years ago. When I say it was one of the great cities, at that city was one of the 7 great wonders of the world, one of the great old wonders of the world. And in Ephesus, I mean, it's amazing. A third of the city now is uncovered, and you just walk down these streets, and you have around you, 2,500 years. And they're just unearthing more of it. A third of it's unearthed, and I can hardly wait to see it all when it's all done. But as we would go down the streets and the guide would talk to us about Ephesus, it was probably the most civilized city in the world at one time. 300 years before Christ, they had warm running water. They had learned how to let the water set in the sun and hold it there for a period of time before they would send it to the homes. And it was just an incredible experience. And so we went down this main avenue. It's the avenue where the people walked up to the center of the city, and it was just grand with all these pillars, and the library was clear at the end, and the stadium of the seated 3,500 was over to the right. And I mean, it's just unbelievable. And so as we're going down the avenue of Ephesus, as we were going down there, she was talking to us about, she said, along this avenue were columns, and she said they called them the heads of honor. And they put on these top of these columns, as you go down this main avenue, the heads, the stone heads of men and women in that city that had, not that were famous, not that were rich, but she said the only way that you could be in the heads of honor column on the main city street was if you had given something to your city that had helped make it great. She said the only people that got their heads of honor on the main street were people who had learned to give. And as I'm sitting there, I'm taking notes, I'm thinking to myself, this is so true about life itself. And so let me talk to you about having a generous spirit. When you talk about leaders that have a generous spirit, what are we talking about? Number one, they think others first. That's just how they think. The measure of a leader is not the number of people who serve him, but the number of people he serves. Generosity requires putting others first. If you can do that, giving becomes much easier. In fact, there's a question I ask potential leaders all the time. We'll be doing a conference here in just a few weeks called Catalyst, where we'll have 5,000 leaders under 40 spend 2 days with us, just teaching leadership to these young, energetic minds. But whenever I find somebody that's going to be a young leader, I always ask them the same question. I ask them, why do you want to be a leader? It's a great question. Because what I have discovered is they're going to tell me by their answer how successful they're going to be. If they say, for example, I want to be a great leader because I love power, or I want to be a great leader because I think that I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to have a lot of perks, I'm going to have a lot of privileges, I realize that their leadership is going to be shorted. What I'm looking for when I ask people why they want to be a leader is not an answer that basically says, if I'm a leader, it's going to help me. But I'm looking for somebody who basically says, if I become a leader, I have the privilege and the opportunity to make things better for others. Because the only reason to become a leader is to add value to other people. That's the only reason to become a leader. And if you're leading for any other reason, besides I'm wanting to add value to people, I'm promising you're going to shortcut yourself, your motives are going to be wrong, and you're not going to last very long. You certainly are not going to last over the long haul. In your notes, leading becomes an illegitimate exercise when leaders consider themselves and their interest over the people they lead. I happen to be privileged to have a nonprofit organization called Equip, which is responsible for right now in a 6-year period of time of raising up 1 million leaders internationally, finding them, training them, and resourcing them. It's an incredible experience. What I have discovered as I go to developing country that the number one problem with leaders in developing countries is they always put themselves first. And many times they literally rape and fleece the people so that they can live well. Now you say, that's terrible. That's why developing countries don't do well. That's exactly right. But I can tell you something else. In corporate America, I see this happening. I see all of a sudden me doing this, me first, and what's in for me, and what can I get off at the top, and let's not worry about those other people. This is wrong. That's why I wrote the book, There's No Such Thing as Business Ethics, and based it on the Golden Rule, because if you live your life by the Golden Rule, you're not going to live this kind of life. Number 2, regard yourself as a resource for others. In other words, you have not lived today until you have done something for someone who can never repay you. A leader's abilities are on loan. In other words, they're given to you. And you are responsible to, in any way, pass those on to other people. When I was in the Philippines last year and had an hour of private time with President Arroyo, a wonderful lady, one of the questions I asked her is why she wanted to lead in the Philippines, again, knowing again of all the destruction that happens with leaders. And I loved her answer. She said, "I'm determined to be a one-term president, to do everything I could for the value of my people and not live off of my people." I thought, oh, how wonderful. What a wonderful response. Number 3, in the area of generosity, regard your possessions as a resource for others. In other words, your possessions are not just a resource for yourself, but for others. Follow with me in your notes. According to my friend Earl Wilson, people can be divided into 3 groups: haves, have-nots, and have not paid for what they have. More and more people are becoming enslaved to the desire to acquire. Author Richard Foster writes, "Owning things is an obsession in our own culture. If we own it, we feel we can control it. If we can control it, we feel it will give us more pleasure. The idea is an illusion." E. Stanley Jones said, "Money is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. If it gets on top and you get under it, you will become its slave." And again, Richard Foster advises, just the very act of letting go of money or some other treasure does something within us. It destroys the demon greed. If you're enslaved by greed, you will not lead others with integrity. That's a fact. Complete the 3 phases of life. And the 3 phases of life are very simple. The 3 phases of life are learn, earn, and return. Learn all you can, earn all you can, and return all you can. Here's what I know. Your fulfillment and significance in life will never be based on what you have, but will always be based on what you gave. Margaret and I are in a very wonderful time of our life, and God has blessed us greatly, and we have a lot of things. No question about it. The blessings have been quite huge. But the most fun that we've been having in the last year is sitting down with a financial counselor, somebody that's very skilled in money matters, and planning how we can, in our lifetime before we die, give everything away. See, I want to give my giving while I'm living, so I'm knowing where it's going. I don't want to die and give it to the state. It's not my goal. And so therefore, we have a plan. Our plan has included throughout our life of gaining certain financial resources so that we can have options, because the value of money is only twofold. It gives you options, and you have the privilege of helping others with it. That's the only value of money. If you think that money gives you any other value besides options and the ability to help people, you truly do not understand finances. And so therefore, because of the blessings of God and gifts and talents perhaps that we have, we've been blessed with resources, and we're grateful. We have options. But one of those options is that I am determined to give it away. And I'm determined to give it away in a planned fashion and to be able, hopefully with a decent long life, to watch those resources be activated in people's lives. Here's what I know. Here's what I know. It's not what I receive. It's what I give. that really matters.